We chose to do our project on gender bias in leadership positions because although, according to the US Department of Labor, women make up nearly half, 48.6% of the total US labor force, only a fraction of women are CEOs or executive members in companies. The problem begins with gender bias in leadership itself, which refers to the preferential treatment of individuals based on their gender. And these gender biases lead to unequal treatment, expectations, and opportunities based on gender over ability. Women face barriers in hiring, promotion, evaluations, and leadership advancement, where leadership stereotypes typically favor masculine traits. This matters because leadership opportunities should be based on ability and merit, and not based on invisible barriers that limit career advancement for women, where leadership diversity will help strengthen representation and help ensure decisions are informed by a wider range of experiences and perspectives. For background, before 1963, women faced severe legal labor restrictions, limited job categories, and widespread legal hiring discrimination. In 1963, the Equal Pay Act was passed. The Equal Pay Act made it illegal for women to be paid lower wages than men when performing the same job opportunities. In 1964, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act was passed, and this title prohibited employment discrimination based on sex, race, religion, ethnicity, and more. Early leadership theories revolved around the idea that effective leaders are described using masculine characteristics, where they are formed using these long-lasting stereotypes. This photo I included on the right is from World War II propaganda, which women used to empower themselves, symbolizing the breaking of traditional gender roles. For context, gender stereotypes exist where traditional gender roles are men as leaders and women as caregivers, and men are expected to be more assertive, whereas women are expected to be nurturing and quiet. When women are leaders, they often experience being portrayed in a specific way, where if they are assertive, they're portrayed as aggressive. If they're collaborative, they're perceived as weak. And many hiring and promotion decisions are influenced by unconscious stereotypes, creating additional obstacles for women. And women remain underrepresented in executive leadership. According to this pie chart, about 89% of CEOs are male, and the other 11% are female, which is a massive minority. And this is rooted in longstanding gender roles.
I wanted to thank my previous team member as we all needed to come together to build this presentation. I will be taking over for the theoretical analysis role, and I will be speaking briefly on role continuity theory and social role theory. These are principles that we pulled from our class and that we thought were applicable to the problem of prejudice in female leadership in the workforce. In this section, I would like to talk about our role continuity theory and social role theory. These are concepts that we pulled from the class that closely align with what we've been talking about throughout this presentation so far when it comes to female leadership in the job workforce. Some important key takeaways that I'd like to draw attention to for our role continuity theory are that it was developed by Eagly and Karu in 71. And the thinking behind this refers to the rationale of the prejudices that come towards female leadership. Some important takeaways for our SRT. This was developed in the 80s, a little bit after our RCT. And looks like I got a little bit of a typo there, but this claims that the biases are not an inherent thing, but are instead inherited from, sorry, I guess inherent wouldn't make sense, but it's a construct of the culture that someone's raised in. Next up is our application of roles and theories. So couple quick points that I want to draw attention to. Excuse me if I read a little bit into this. The prejudices that we find emerge where there are perceived mismatches. to the traits applied to the social group. Specifically within leadership, we're speaking about that double standard towards female leaders, whereas for displaying traditionally masculine characteristics, such as like an adherence to laws or a stipulation-based leadership, or maybe a discipline-based leadership can lead them to be labeled as unlikable or stern. And then women displaying female characteristics such as a warmth or an emotional availability, or what was the other thing that I had? Connection. They may be perceived as lacking authority or being not genuine as leaders. And then the last point that I wanted to draw to, this connects with our SRT, our social role theory. These prejudices may be reinforced through the structure, whether that be a work structure or a social structure. And the beneficiaries of this structure may not notice it as much as those who are it's not based around. So men may notice it less than women do within the constructed structures of workforces, which reinforces our social role theory. With that, I would like to hand it off to my next teammate who's going to delve slightly deeper into our theoretical analysis, and then we will move into some solutions and our conclusion. Thank you.
Building on the previous series, another communication series that helps explain gender bias in leadership is muted group theory, developed by Sherry in 1981. According to this theory, communication systems and organizational norms are often shaped by dominant social groups. Since senior leadership has historically been dominated by men, workplace communication expectations are often based on traditionally masculine styles. As a result, women leaders may feel pressure to adjust their communication style to gain credibility. For example, a woman who speaks assertively may be described as bossy, while a man using the same communication style is often seen as confident or decisive. Overall, multi-group theory shows that gender bias is reinforced not only by individual attitudes, but also by communication norms and organizational power structures. Well, communication theories help explain why gender bias exists. Different stakeholders often view this issue differently. Some employers believe leadership decisions should be based solely on merit and qualifications. Some members of the general public believe women are underrepresented because they choose different career paths or prioritize family responsibilities. However, social roles theory suggests these choices are influenced by long-standing social expectations rather than being entirely personal. Researchers, on the other hand, argues that unconscious gender stereotypes continues to shape organizational language and leadership perceptions. Lawson and colleges found that organizations with more women in senior leadership use less gender stereotypical language. These different perspectives shows that solving gender bias require addressing both workplace policies and broader communication and cultural expectations. Now I'll hand it to next person to discuss our purpose solutions.
Okay, so the different solutions we have for this issue, because it is a multifaceted issue, it requires a multifaceted solution. So the women in leadership problem is not just case by case or organization by organization. It is a broader cultural issue, and so it should be addressed in several different ways. And the most effective changes are going to be systematic, cultural, and policy-based solutions, all working in tandem to allow for these women to be in these leadership roles and stay in the leadership roles comfortably. So, one of the best systematic changes that can occur is going to be affirmative action. Affirmative action is a solution that fights against implicit gender bias by managers hiring for leadership roles. And having affirmative action creates not only positions where women would otherwise be overlooked in favor of their male counterparts, but it also creates the expectation of women being in leadership roles company-wide. Another great change would be a workplace culture change. So the best way to counter workplace culture and sexism is using gender-specific leadership trainings, and that way you can confront the gender-based discrimination before it happens. Most importantly, according to Gander and Sharafizad, the trainings themselves must be hands-on and engaging. So not something that can quickly be clicked through or just a simple checkbox like, yes, I read this. It has to be something that is engaging enough to where it causes leadership to think and internalize these messages. The last option for our solution would be a family-friendly workplace policy. So, family-friendly workplace policies are fantastic because women are culturally expected to ensure care of their children, and that can occasionally cause strain with strict workplace policies. So, or rigid workplace policies. So, some of the best options are going to be flexible attendance, which includes like work from home options, as well as mandatory parental leave. That way, women can take care of their families and choose to have a family if that's what they desire, without having to sacrifice their leadership positions. As one of the other parts of this would be mandatory equal pay. This also allows for women to continue to support themselves equally and their families equally as their male counterparts. To conclude, women in leadership are facing gender-specific barriers into advancing in leadership, both from cultural and societal aspects, despite being equally as qualified as their counterparts. And these gender biases can be present in societal, social, and unconscious ways, and therefore the bias must be intentionally countered by organizations using supportive measures. And here are our references. Thank you so much.